Hi folks, and welcome to the ranch. This is Bud in Studio A at SOPHA, and thanks for joining us. I'm going to read some member mail here today. Pat Crean asks, hey, could you set up a class on the logistics of setting up a shoot? Well, I don't know about a class, but why don't we address it in a video? Now, many of you around here have seen that we have a sign up that says the Tao of Bud, or the Tao of Bud, depending upon which Buddhist tradition you believe in. And that's Buddhist, not Buddhist. In any event, the idea is, number one, form a concept. And this is the biggest thing we run into here. Do you have a solid concept for your shot? Because if you don't, you're going to have a hard time meeting your goals, right? And that concept can be really, really narrow. For example, this week I'm shooting a product shot for cosmetic containers. Perfect stuff. Very narrow concept. I know exactly what it is I need. And sometimes it's a more broad concept. I might be shooting a 3/4 portrait of someone. And it could be a set against the white cyclorama. What is the concept for your shot? We had a member in here last night shooting pinup using an antique phone and that sort of thing. Well, they've got a concept to work with. What's the concept for your shot? Now, the first subcategory under form a concept is form your team. Now let's give you an analogy. You decide that you're going to go out and play baseball. The first thing you need is to assemble your team. And to have a really cool shoot going on, you may need a whole bunch of players to get it done. All right? And those players could be just you and your subject. But it could be you, your subject, your makeup artist, your hairstylist, your clothing stylist, your prop stylist. Never mind that you're going to have to book the studio time, and I'm sure you could come up with other things. Maybe you have to run to the florist ahead of time. I did that yesterday for a shoot. I had to run and get some flowers. Just so happens we got one right across the street, just saying. But you got the idea that you have to pull together your team. The second part in all of this is that you have to coordinate your team and make sure that everybody's on the same page about the concept. No concept, it's tough to have a teamwork. And it's tough to provide leadership to that team if you don't have a fairly rigid concept figured out. If you don't, you're going to be fighting that the entire time. What are we doing? I don't know. Talk to Bud. And you can see where that goes. Step 2, figure out how you're going to light it. That's the second step in the Tao of Bud. Figure out how you're going to light it. Now, this may sound obvious, but it really helps you figure out what you're going to need logistically for the gear in your shoot. The more you can think about what that shot's going to look like, the more you can determine how you're going to light it. Now, for example, you could be doing a location shoot, and you're thinking, I want soft diffuse light. Well, you need to account for the fact it might be a bright sunny day, and you might not be able to go to shade. Remember the first rule of location lighting, run to shade. But you might not be able to do that, so you might need big diffusion panels, and that means you're going to need more staff to help you hold them because diffusion panels look like sails outside. Begin to get the idea. Inside the studio here at SOPHA, it becomes a little bit easier because pretty much all the gear you need is here, but the more you pre-think that, the better off you are. Step 3, actually set up your gear and light it and get your team together doing all their work. The first step when you actually start your shoot is put your model into makeup. If you have a makeup artist and a hairstylist, that takes time. It burns huge amounts of time, and you have to get that started right away. Make sure they have their concepts down straight and get them into hair and makeup. Hair and makeup, depending upon what you're doing, could take as short as 15 minutes, and it could take as long as 2 hours. Heck, we've seen longer here for some of those ridiculous hairstyles. So again, depending upon what's going on, hey, you're doing a family of 4 and you're thinking, I'm going to bring a makeup artist in to just tweak this. A family of 4 could take a makeup artist 20 minutes to do, and that's just for quick touch-ups. So just keep in mind that the first thing you need to do is get them into hair and makeup. Follow that up with, now you can set up your lights and your gear. Get that going while they're in hair and makeup. Now here's another little Bud tip. Bing, bing, bing. Bud tip. Don't use your subject as your stand-in. In other words, when you're dialing in your lights and getting your stuff squared away, don't use your model for that or your subject. Don't do it. Why? Because they're going to get exhausted with frames that have nothing to do with your final product. Use a stand-in. Hire an intern or assistant. Bring a friend. Use a member of your crew who's not doing anything at that time to stand in for lighting. That's a big deal. I see this all the time. And by the time you get to the part where the lights are dialed in and everything's awesome, your model has given up their best expressions and frames to the test shots, which probably aren't your best lighting. So again, don't use your model as your stand-in. The last part, and the part I see this all the time, is to manage color. Now, in this video that we're shooting right now, we're using natural light, but we're balancing in lights behind me. Back over here is a tungsten balanced light, and back over there are some fluorescent lights, and they all have slightly different color. And you better believe I custom white balance before I start. Custom white balance any high value shot. And furthermore, you may have to use gels to balance out some of the color. I didn't do that here because it's Sunday morning and I'm lazy, but you can do that. Also, consider if you're adding in gels. That should be the fourth part. So again, step one, form a concept. Step two, and this is important, figure out how you're going to light it. Step three, figure out your exposure. Make sure you get that dialed in and make sure you use a stand-in. And step four, manage color, typically through custom white balance, but also using color balancing gels or adding in gels for added accent and flare. The logistics of a photo shoot are not impossible, folks. They are daunting, but the sooner you have a concept dialed in and the sooner you bring your team together, the better off you're going to be. And hopefully you'll be doing that shoot with us here at SOPHA. Thanks for joining us.